Hello, welcome to Chess Analysis. I'm Ruru, and today we're looking at a game played by two Hololive idols, Kiara Takanashi and Amelia Watson. Both of these players are unrated, and they don't have a lot of theory on the game, so there is not too much to talk about here, but it is still a very interesting game as far as I know. um, there are some stakes on the game, though. Before Kiara challenged Amelia, she made a declaration about a promotion within the group, and so this chess game is to secure her spot on a different level. You can actually take a look at that.
If I win this game, I demand a promotion from bottom left to bottom right. We can't let her win.
So as you can see, the stakes are high. She's looking to increase her rank. And Amelia definitely wants to stop that. So let's just get into the game. Kiara opens with c3, called the Saragossa opening. There's a few games from this, and it seems to be in favor of the light pieces, although depending on Black's reply, there's a lot of play. This opening leaves a lot of room. It's one of those waiting openings where the dark side can play regular principled moves that give them more space. Meanwhile, the light side can either push this pawn or push this pawn and open up this queen side of the board. It's not played a lot because it's not honestly very strong, but that's where we're at this point. Amelia replies with h6, and Stockfish is already out of the book. Nobody has played this game ever. And honestly, it doesn't really give a lot to think about. Neither of the players have taken initiative, and that seems to be common in unrated games or games between players that don't play, to be quite frank. Kiara responds with h4, and then we have a5, f4. Kind of wasting time with these pawn pushes, but it doesn't really matter considering Amelia didn't respond with strength. And rook to a6 is the first piece move, which is impressive, honestly, considering none of the other pieces are developed. But this is kind of a principled move, as it puts the rook into play, and then on the next move you can take over any space over here. It does put the rook at risk, but considering the opponent, it's probably a very strong move. So from here, e4, taking more space in the center, and then r to c6, rook to c6, which is kind of great, kind of not. It's a safe place for the rook, as Amelia controls all of the space over here. So the rook is going to be kind of safe for at least two moves. It gives her time to develop more pieces. Then we have a4, stopping the pawn here. Knight to a6. Not the best, but considering the rook is already taking a spot, maybe you can come to here and look at these two squares, which are under defended. Well, not this one. The queen defends that. Actually, neither of these squares are good. It opens up an immediate attack, which is not the best to take. You don't really want to give up your bishop right away. So now we have b2, defending a pawn twice. b6, just defending this pawn, which wasn't being attacked, but you just can kind of get your bishop ready in case there's a trade on the line. Rook to h3, all the way. Nope, wrong one. This rook, h3, developing. Kiara develops her rook, which is this is a pretty decent move considering the circumstances. Any of these squares would be a nice place for the rook if you get some support first. Like, bring your bishop out here, try to tease out a weakness, or develop your knight after moving the rook to where you want it. I would like this square in particular, considering the circumstance. Amelia responds with bishop to b7. Kind of a waste of a move. This doesn't do anything, although it does set up for a discovery on the pawn if the rook moves somewhere. Not there, really. And there aren't many places for the rook to go, to be fair, but it's an attack, if you want to call it that. Knight to f3. Usually played earlier, but this is alright. There's not really much to say about this move. Everything's kind of messed up. Rook to e6. Looking at the king, which is pretty great. This pawn can no longer capture without, or just can't capture, period. It's pinned. And the rook could be pushed away with the pawn move, but, you know, it would be a waste. Not to push the pawn, a waste to have the rook there without a plan. But luckily for Amelia, Kiara doesn't have a plan. So we have bishop to a3. Where are you at? Not that bishop. This bishop to a3. Decent development. It's the only place this bishop can go to, and it looks at the other bishop. So we have a kind of an opposition if this pawn wasn't blocked in by the rook. Bishop takes on e4. Actually a great move. This attack was set up earlier, and now we have a discovery possible. So if this bishop ever moves, it's immediately check. So without knowing it, Amelia set up her first attack and actually executes it pretty well. So we have d3, pushing the bishop back, which is a bad move. Like, as I discussed, you probably want to move the king or develop your bishop. You actually don't want to move the king, let's be honest. It's too early. You still have castling rights if you're lucky. But really, putting the bishop in the way is a lot better. And you can even put the knight up here if you don't mind, you know, the little bit of danger. Although it's very easy to push the knight away with these pawns. Bishop to f5 check, getting away. And in this point, both players discovered check for the first time. Which is, honestly, it's pretty adorable.
We both don't know why, who got checked? Am I checking you? What? How? What? Oh, no! Ah! Oh, no! No! Wait, can I?
So, yeah. That is honestly kind of amazing. I remember my first check, but I don't remember the game I played it in, to be fair. Kiara responds with king. Where are we at? King to d2. Better would be bishop. King is kind of like, is okay, in quotes, okay, with these pawns still guarding, and Amelia doesn't have an attack, re-attack set up. Not truly. So for the moment, this is decent. And rook to e4 comes next. Oh god, really? Yeah. Immediately putting the rook in danger. Not really sure what Amelia's plan was. Probably to attack this pawn, or just to put some pressure on. As both players don't really have a plan. Any pressure is something. We have knight. can't find this move because it's so awkward. Knight to d4. Attacking the bishop. And bishop takes on h3. I did forget to mention, on check, the bishop is supposed to take this rook here after the move, but it's a little delayed, increasing the confusion up to this point, I suppose. So g takes and g6. This one. Kind of holding off the line here. This is alright to stop pawns, but the rook is in danger, so it's a blunder all the way. We have d takes on e4. Where's my d pawn? Yeah. Knight to f6. Not that knight. And here, Kiara reaffirms her declaration, which I think is important to the arc, considering these are idle players. It's about the story, in a sense.
Because people had a discussion about whether or not, I mean, everyone is certain about me being bottom, but there were discussions about whether or not I'm smart or not. And people were like, well, she can speak a bunch of languages fluently, but it doesn't necessarily mean that she's smart, right? Well, I see what you're doing. I see what you could do.
That's smart.
So, you know, she wants to prove that she is a thinker. And honestly, she thinks. She gets into some deep thought during the game. It's a decent declaration, I think. Amelia, though, sets up an attack here, can take a pawn with check, and there's really almost nothing that can be done about it except to push the pawn or guard the pawn. Even a queen move, not that. A queen move would be better than what was played in the game. So what she goes for, well, not a bad move. Bishop, no. Where am I at? This game is so confusing. Knight to f6. King to c2. Getting further away from the active pieces. Kiara probably felt a little threatened. I would too, if my king was here. But also this gives room for the knight to escape, previously being blocked in by every piece. So the knight can be active after the fact. Then we have d6. Probably better would have been d5 to double attack, or to just straight up take this. It's a free pawn. Definitely worth capturing. But this queen is already supporting the pawn, so no matter what happens, considering a pawn push, the queen can then recapture and will be developed, and x-raying this queen here, pinning this knight, would have been an overall better move. Not judging. Bishop takes on a6, taking the free knight. It's hard to take stock of all of the threats in the game because neither player knows their threats. So that's a cause for some confusion on my part. Then knight takes on e4. Finally, trading a knight for a pawn. Not the best, but this knight now has great development. Holding the center. If you can guard that knight, nothing else can touch it. The queen could pressure. This knight could come in and get a trade. There's not any really good places to counter. But unfortunately, it drops a tempo because this bishop can immediately discover check, or take a check. And there's nothing that can be done about this. And that's exactly what is played. Bishop to b5 check. So it's kind of like a trap, but not really. Like, did you ever have you ever set a trap on accident? I'm not sure. Um, and there's nothing really that can be played here. You should give up the queen. Honestly, like as abysmal as it sounds, you have to give up the queen here. But instead, Amelia plays c6, so losing another piece. Bishop captures on c6 with check. Queen d7 is the only move. You have to play it. Bishop captures on d7, and king captures on d7. And now it's weird. It's a little equal. Uh, Amelia has an advanced knight, but no development anywhere else. You could easily put this bishop into play and then bring the rook into the game. Not there. Right, no. Right here. That's the square. Bishop develops, put the rook into the game, maybe even guard the knight. And this pawn wall is actually pretty impressive. So despite being down a queen, Amelia has some attacking opportunities coming up. In contrast, Kiara has all of the pieces. She's up a knight and a queen and down a couple pawns. But considering this bishop is blocked on all sides and has to go back and remaneuver to get any play, even maybe this pawn needs to be out of the way or something. Maybe we have to wait for an attack. There's not a lot going on. Plus, this knight has to get out of the way. So even if the bishop gets prepared, the knight has to move. There's a lot that Kiara has to work on. Whoops. So queen d4 check. Am I reading that right? No, I wrote down the wrong line. It's queen g4 check. So that's me. It's a free check, but it can easily be stuffed by a pawn push, or even to just block with this pawn, and then you have to go back. Unfortunately, Amelia doesn't know this, and she plays, well, e6 actually, which is the less strong of the two options, considering you get free development, but it still prevents any further harassment. And now the queen has to find another route. F5. Kind of a blunder. What would be... You're basically running into this move to capture. And then you have the kind of a weird pawn chain in the center, but it's all supported. And then the bishop can get in here. The knight can go back and attack the queen, or even the king can come into play. Although risking a check, it doesn't really do anything, because then the king can just settle up, moving in here to get into safety. There's just barely enough time. If Kiara wants to stop it with a queen move, that she can't. She could take this knight as compensation. But it's honestly, I wasn't even thinking about it, just because of how messed up this game is. The response, however, is bishop to g7. Big blunder, because you're losing the knight. And then also you can capture here. And then if the pawn captures, the queen captures here with check, and there's nothing you can do about it. Because there's no defense on the pawn, and this knight is also attacking the pawn. So you don't even need to pick up the knight to win the game here. We have f captures on e6. Not the best. It comes with check, which is pretty cool, but stronger would have been to take on g and give yourself a bigger attack. King to d8. Just running away, it's not great. You're blocking in your rook. Rook has nowhere to go now. Better would be maybe not even to capture, although you don't want You don't want the light side to capture. It's weird. Maybe you can, better would be to move over, and then when you capture, capture back, and you're kind of okay, but you're still losing this knight no matter what, because you're down a tempo. Knight c6 check. As you know, some people, you see a check, you take a check. It's not terrible. It's something to do. The king can't approach forward. The king could probably attack this way, but that would be a bad move anyway, because you have the knight can just go back, or and the knight can even go over here, which kind of blocks the pawn, but it gives you control of all of these squares, which is highly unfortunate. It can't be redefended though, so you'd have to find another way to just go around. It would remaneuver, discover check again. I keep saying discover, that's wrong. But you grab check again, and you can get your knight back out of the game, out of danger, and into the game safely, and also pick up a pawn if you want. A lot of options. Amelia responds with king to f8, running away again. She felt the pressure, I suppose, which is fair. Now ex, e takes with check, king takes, and queen to f6 check, which is a devastating blunder. You're immediately losing the queen. Here I wrote, oh, I missed? Hold on. This is so confusing. It's queen to g4? No. I'm sorry. This is hard to follow. Queen to f6 check. G takes. And rook to a2. No. There's something wrong here. Oh. Queen takes on f6. King takes. There we go. Very sorry. This is what this game is doing to me. Then we have rook to a2. Not that rook. This rook. a2. Which is, it's an okay move. I would rather move the knight because it is the only piece not developed, and it's also hemmed in pretty hard. Plus there's an immediate trade, which would not be the best, but considering the circumstances, maybe you want to get rid of that knight. Amelia would have to move otherwise, and there's not a lot of places to go. Can't even go there. You can go deeper in the position. This knight is kind of strong, but also not doing anything. It's not protected. Very, very strange stuff. And then Amelia plays rook to c8, attacking the knight, putting pressure on the pawn, which is double attacked. On moving, you can immediately capture for... Well, not capture because it's guarded. Oh, it's triple. Yeah, no, you can definitely capture this. Triple attack here. And you can also capture with the bishop for a discovered check, which is very strong at this level of play. Knight d4 check. What? Knight d4 check. I think I meant knight to e5 check. I wrote down the wrong thing. There's obviously not a check on d4. Knight to e5 check, and then 27. King to f6. It's all right. It's a pretty good move. You attack the piece, and it can't be defended. The bishop is blocked out. The rook is blocked out. The knight is too far away. There's no pawns, and you could just take it with any piece really. But this move makes the king kind of more active. It's not the worst thing. It gets away from this pawn push. I don't think Amelia was thinking about that though. Bishop takes on d6. It's all right. It's a free pawn. It protects your knight, considering giving up the knight in a blunder. I mean, the knight is still gone. If takes, then takes and takes, and the king is just there. You lost your extra pieces, and that would put Amelia ahead. But knight takes on d6. As it is also a blunder. It's really hard to follow this game, even though I looked at it this afternoon. And knight to a3. Finally developing this knight as the bishop left room, and it's an okay square. It provides opposition for the dark knight, and that's really all there is to say about it. King to e7. That can't be right. It must be king to e6. a3. King to e6. Rook to a1. Going back. Now the this rank is open, and I guess going back is kind of better. But you've lost so much tempo. There's really nothing. There are better options. Let's say you could push the pawn. You could save your knight. Saving the knight is pretty strong. Regardless, king to d7. That can't be right. Oh, king to e7? No. Probably king to e7. Rook to e1. Setting up a discovered attack, but it's not effective because of this bishop. Bishop to f6. Question mark. Attacking a pawn. Question mark. Knight to f3. With check. And this is alright. Considering all the blunders that just happened, this is probably the strongest move Kiara plays in the game. And we have in response... no, this can't be right. Somehow this king is supposed to be over here. I think I messed up the game horribly. Somewhere in here I messed up. I'm gonna say the game beat me on this one. Shit. I think that's about it. Like, there's really not a lot else to say about this. As the game goes on, both players trade down, and we actually can take a peek at that.
Chat, place your bets now. Who is gonna win this intense chess game?
They eventually trade down to this position. All the queens are off.
I feel like it could end up in like an endless chasing.
They don't. Right now, they're discussing whether or not the game couldn't draw. Neither of the players realized that chess has a finite move set, and as it goes on, you can actually draw the game, in case you were wondering. We're going to skip ahead. The players don't really know what to do. They play around with check for a while. What we're looking for is for these pawn pushes. Eventually, Amelia starts pushing the pawns. Oh, we'll go back. And Amelia doesn't know that you can promote. So when she gets to the 8th rank, she promotes to a rook. And immediately takes the attacking advantage. Kiara follows suit, trying something, and eventually she gets a queen. And it's, well, I mean, let's just look.
Wait, did they say only one?
What? I think you can get 2.
Because it was two at all. Is it?
She's going for a queen here. Amelia pushes the pawn. She wants to get another promotion.
Oh no!
And then there's a blunder. Kiara immediately drops her queen. And of course, Amelia recaptures with the knight. Or the rook. It goes on from here. The players promote some more and trade down some more. And we lose a horse here.
And I was
Amelia not caring about the consequences. She just takes the horse.
your power. Thank you for everything you've done for me. You will be feeling better when you're up there in horse heaven.
Mm,
And at least
horse heaven.
hope you will not be made into burger or something like that. Because I don't like horse burgers. No, that's not a good thing. I'm sorry for what I've done for you. I'm so sorry. I wish I could.
Amelia is just playing with her opponent right now. Teasing a pawn push. Oh, these are, I skipped ahead previously.
Don't do it, Ame.
Promote to a queen. Amelia checks across the board for a while.
If I go here, retreat.
And Kiara trying to find a place for her knight. And there's a good point around move 65.
What I said. Never. No.
I might have stopped it. I might have passed it. Regardless, after 90 moves, Kiara resigns, although she can't find the resignation button. She can't actually figure out how to resign. She does resign the game here
Yeah, I
Oh.
could not even surrender.
in
myself
this
because
position.
It doesn't allow me to surrender.
She says it doesn't
We were like,
doesn't work. There's no
like
surrender.
this, I think,
There's
probably
probably
a lot more.
there's probably a way to surrender, but this is the position where she gives up. And it is an overwhelming disadvantage. She only has her king left. Amelia is ready to promote to another queen. I think she promotes to a rook, actually. She under promotes again. And then they check around a lot more. But in a standard game, this is where Kiara would resign. And unfortunately does not get her promotion. But I don't know. That's just how it goes, I guess. Either way, thank you for watching. This game was so confusing. I couldn't even follow it having the notation in front of me. But I don't know. If you like this content, I do a lot more on my Twitch channel, and that's really about all I have to say about it. Thank you for watching, and have a beautiful morning.